This is part of the Muay Thai Baijiu bottle structure, cardboard structure build sequence. It's an interplay between several different skills, which is a lot has to do with how our classes run. So I had some sketches, an idea about how I wanted to do something, and then it was building some basic structures and then figuring out how that was going to work, how the bottle was going to fit, and how I was going to articulate some of the details. So it was a lot of back and forth between 3D file, developing die lines, building boxes, going back to 3D and working out some of the geometry and the articulation and the pivot points and working everything all up together. So this is just one of the steps. So actually, after I figured out how big the box was going to be from some of the 3D data, I jumped right into a die line. I didn't build a full 3D file of the part like I have done some of the other exercises. I just went in to build the die line so I can make a mock-up and then start playing with the mock-up and putting parts in it, see how they were going to work. So that's this sequence right here. So this is a double end wall. It's a little confusing here. I just have a bunch of lines sitting here, but I just want to talk about how to quickly lay out a die line based on some of the geometries and then export it so we can print that out and actually put it on a piece of cardboard and cut it out. So I'm using a double end wall approach, and I got rid of the notches, the little tabs when you fold the double end wall in, because I wanted this to be very, very clean. So I used a double wall on the inside. I folded the material inside to lock it in. And a lot of that will be very clear when you look at all the tutorials related to this project. So this is just working out the geometries. That dark line in the center, that's the back of the box, back or front, depending on how you want to look at it. The overall geometry that I needed, and then the rest of it I just built from that. And you can see I have some of my little nuances and details. I made this out of E-flute. So some of these little tiny little steps and spaces and little angle. This is the double wall that comes over the top and all these little nuances. This is my hinge area. I allowed a little space. That takes a lot of practice. I can't really, there's no hard, fast rules about a lot of this. You have to kind of a little bit of trial and error how to figure this out. So what's interesting about this box is once you build one half, it's a perfectly symmetrical part. So this one half over here up to the center is exactly the same as this side. So once I figured out what I wanted to do on one side, all I had to do is mirror it over, make the other side. Because I want to print this out and make it all out of one piece of E-flute and fold that up. That actually turned out really, really well. So one way to do this is once I'm building this, I created this outer frame. I kind of want to know my paper size because everything has to be 100%. So once I figured this out, I made this in some kind of a number I can remember. So this happens to be 30 inches by 20 inches, and it fits this part in here nicely. I don't go to the printer and have a big, huge sheet made. I just sort of tile this myself. I find it easier. I can do it right here in my office. So sometimes I need to know where my centers are so I can tile this and tape it together. So that's what these lines are here. Curve. This one and this one, these are just center lines. And I believe I have one right down the middle. That helps me to understand the quadrants. So if I print out a section, I can trim along those lines and I can trim another part and I tape them together. So those are sort of just guides. That's not part of the geometry. So if I were to get rid of those, we could see it's a pretty simple box. And even the center line here is not even part of the geometry. So once I figured that all out, the idea is to get it printed out. So here in Rhino, one easy way to do this, is several ways to do this. This is one way I figured out how to do this, and it works pretty conveniently. I select everything, and then I go up under File, and I say Export Selected. I click on that, and this is, let's see, Baijiu existing box. I'm just going to make up a name here for now. Box DL test. And I'll just, that might be that one, but I don't remember what I did. And I need to put this under PDF. So it's a PDF, so it's great. You can open it in Illustrator and you can do a lot with it. So I'm going to say save. So you need to do that first. And then here's where you get to organize it. It's a little backwards to me. I'm used to kind of organizing and setting it up, getting the parameters down, and then when I'm all done, I save it. But here you need to save it and give it a name before you get these options. These options are very helpful because you're allowed to make some changes here. So for me, I have, this is an old setting, so I think I have 30 width and I have 20 high. That's why it's easy to remember. I have it at 300 DPI. I'm doing vector output. It's not quite fitting, so what we need to do is we start off with extends. So now it's fitting up to that border. So now I know this is 100%. But when you do fit, it's not quite 100%. It's 99.01. That's not good. So it's scaling to fit because I think of that border. We need to go to very important little detail here. You're going to lose a little bit. So go 1-to-1. See how it made that just a little bit bigger? Now that is 100%. That's what's absolutely imperative that you keep track of that. So now I'm able to export this as a PDF, which I can open in Illustrator. I can do whatever I want with it. And all I didn't do anything with this at this point. I just printed it out and tiled it and put it together. So the rest of these options aren't really necessary at this point. So all we have to do is just say, okay. And now I have all this line work that I worked out and I have that as a PDF and I can tile that. So I would just take that, tile it out, make a piece, and I would literally orient my corrugation. Got to have your flutes in the right direction. My flutes in this particular one need to run from here, top to bottom. This one they need to cross over because these are most of my folds are here on both sides. There are several folds here, but it's a lot less. So I'm going to have really strong folds over that tiny little gap area for my double end wall. That's what I want. It's very important. We talk about that in class, especially with this double end wall. So that's it. All I'm talking about is creating this die line, exporting it. So when I took that die line and made my box, I built it, I learned, put the bottle in it, started making bases with that angle insert and started figuring out the articulation. And then all of that together brought this to a really nice conclusion.